Whispers from Below, a horror podcast by Justin W. Geis. Scary stories, both real and fake. Hello, listeners. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 9 of Whispers from Below, a podcast by a madman for madmen. I'm your resident psychopath, Justin W. Geis, and today's topic of discussion is child's play. Now, before I get into the episode, I have a couple things to talk about real quick. So first of all, this episode is dark but also hilarious. For those of you that are, this is your first episode or you're just starting to listen very recently, I love to watch scary movies, particularly ones that are older, whether or not they're classic, but just sort of like bad scary movies, and sort of talk about them, talk about the plot, my thoughts on the plot. One of my favorite things to do when I watch movies is sort of point out plot holes. I know a lot of people hate when people do that, but it's one of my favorite things. So that's kind of what I did today. Another episode that's like this is when I did Leprechaun, which is going to be like an annual thing, which will be super fun. So if you're like this episode, you can go back and listen to that one and sort of get an idea. Another thing is that this episode is probably going to be really long. I don't really have a ton planned out beside my notes when I record, so I say things might be long or short depending on how many notes I have. And just for a reference, my King's Tavern one, which was like, 28 minutes, 30 minutes, is like 3.5, 4 pages of notes. This one is like 8.5 to 9 pages of notes. So it's probably going to be a little bit longer. The other thing I wanted to talk about is that I finally did a photo shoot for the merch that I have, stuff for the hat and the pop socket and all of that good happy stuff. My lovely roommate Devin Hatch took some pictures for me. We did a little photo shoot that was completely safe. We did take some pictures outside. We were distanced from everybody. I took masks off for like maybe 5 minutes just to take pictures. And then we went back to the apartment and we were totally safe. But I will be uploading some of those pictures in the following weeks. So keep an eye out for those. And then because I have all these great pictures, I will probably be creating a website soon. So keep your eye on the lookout for that. And without further ado, let's get into the episode. So this is just as like a background sort of moment. This movie was made in 1988, and I would consider it like a horror classic. Like, this is a movie that I feel like if you're a horror movie buff or you're a fan of sort of spooky, scary movies, you have seen Child's Play, or you at least know Chucky. I think Chucky's like the big one that, like, when you think of like, oh, murderers in a movie, like you think of like, oh, well, Freddy Krueger, Jason, Mike Myers, Chucky. Like, he's up there with like the people that you would think about when you think about a scary movie. This was the first movie in the Chucky like series, the Child's Play series. And if you guys really like this episode, there's like, I think like 7 or 8 more movies, including a remake that was done in like 2019. So if you guys really like this episode, I can just every once in a while go back and keep doing, this like movie number 2 and just kind of go through the series like that. Or alternatively, I can just do a series that's all the first movies of classics like Nightmare on Elm Street and, Friday the 13th and stuff like that. Let me know what you guys think. But this movie was directed by Tom Holland, who is mostly known for this, but I would say he's also known for a couple other horror movies like Fright Night, which is kind of like a cult classic movie. He created a sequel to Psycho, and he directed some Stephen King films. That's pretty much all the basic information of the film. So the story kind of opens up aggressively on like a shootout. You sort of see this serial killer. His name is Charles Lee Ray, who is being played by Brad Dourif. He's being chased by the police. Chris Sarandon plays Detective Mike Norris. And you see him like shoot Charles in the chest and the leg and sort of like pursue him. And he's like, "Give it up, Charles." And then he like shoots the lock off of a door, which like it doesn't really make a whole lot of like, the door like pops open the minute he shoots the lock. And like I'm pretty sure that's like not how locks work. I'm not a locksmith. I don't really know, but from my experience of like how locks work, that's just like not accurate. Like he shoots it and then it pops open like a play door. Anyway, so he breaks into a toy shop. Also, the toy shop had like sort of like glass window. Like, why didn't he just shoot the glass windowing and then like go through? I don't know why he thought the lock was the best idea. Anyway, so he gets into the store. um, and he sort of like is bleeding out and he's sort of like yelling at the detective, and everything's like very, spooky, jarring. It's a creepy, toy shop at night. As he's sort of bleeding out, he stumbles into this pile of good guy dolls. And like for reference, the good guy dolls in this movie are sort of equated to like Care Bears. Uh Sort of like, we'll be your friend forever and like we'll teach you good morals and how to do things. Like that's sort of the vibe you get. And they have like it's like a whole thing. It's super popular. Um and before he dies in this pile of good guy dolls, he declares that he will get revenge on, a select few people that like fucked him over, including the detective. And then he performs this like dark magic, like voodoo ritual to like put his soul inside the doll. So we're starting off on like a very strange opening scene for a movie that like is about the doll. This movie really is like not about the doll. It's very strange, and then all of a sudden it is about the doll. But right now it's more like a voodoo-y serial killer, black magic sort of scenario. So now he has sort of put himself inside the Chucky doll. Each of them has like a different name. I think one of them is like Oscar. And then it's sort of, the incantation like causes this like huge lightning storm to happen above the shop. And when the lightning strikes the store, it like makes this huge explosion, and the detective is like launched back like it was like this really dramatic action scene. And then the store like lights on fire, and he watches, Charles Lee Ray dead, and it sort of shows that scene. And then it cuts to like this very lovely morning, and I wrote, now we meet annoying Andy. Sigh. So we meet Andy Barkley, who is played by Alex Vincent. And just so we're clear, Alex Vincent really only did like these movies and then kind of didn't do anything else. He was like a child actor. And actor is a really strong word for the performance that he gives. I get that like it's hard to like use kids in a movie, and I'll talk about it later because there's like specific scenes where you can tell that he's not really an actor. He's just a kid that was like down to clown. Um, but we meet Andy Barkley, and he's kind of annoying, but like very, very cute. He makes breakfast for his mother, Karen Barkley, who's played by Catherine Hicks. He makes breakfast for her in bed. And it's kind of a cute little scene where like he's watching the Good Guys TV show and he's so excited about it. And then, he's like, he burns the toast by accident in the toaster, and it's like completely charred toast, and he just like globs butter on top of it, like a huge spoonful, and he like pours a bunch of cereal in a bowl and it overflows, and he pours milk in it, but he's not paying attention, so it overflows. And then he just puts like 8 spoonfuls of sugar in it. And then he like pours orange juice and puts it on a tray, but it's like spilling everywhere. But it's kind of a cute scene where you get to see that like him and his mother have like a very close relationship. And the Good Guy TV show is kind of talking about how they've made this new doll. So you can kind of tell that the doll is a newer thing. It's like a newer toy, because there's still like a ton of commercials surrounding it. And it's this creepy man in like a good guy outfit being like, the doll talks to you. And then it like cuts to the doll and he's like, hi, I'm Oscar. We'll be friends till the end. It's like not, like they're not cute. Just so we're clear. These dolls are not cute in like any way. And I hate dolls, clowns, and children in movies. And this hits 2 of those boxes. But they're like creepy. Like I think just very objectively, these dolls are horrifying. So number one, it's just like hard to wrap your brain around the fact that a child would want the doll in the first place. But the fact that it like talks to you, I just think like is really sort of the icing on the cake of like, please don't obtain this item. You don't need it. I wrote creepy as fuck in my notes. And then he wakes up his mom. And again, I like to point out things that just don't make sense. And I know that this was a big thing in like 80s and 90s movies. But this woman wakes up with like full makeup, like a full soft glam 80s beat. And her hair is like done. She wakes up like fully ready for like a photo shoot in her bed, which I just think is hilarious. And she's like, it's only 6:30 in the morning. And she has like no under eye bags, a lash on, blush, lipstick. Like, I'm like, what? How did you sleep with a lash on? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And then it looks like he's gonna get his doll for it's his birthday. That's why he was up so early. And then he says like weird, like something about the lines, like the dialogue in this scene is weird because like he'll go from, she's like, how early were you up, birthday boy? And he's like, I've been up forever. And you're like, oh, that's cute. That's like a little kid. And then she's like, all right, well, let's go open up your presents. And he's like, terrific. Like, children don't say terrific. Like, that's just not a thing that kids say. He's supposed to be like 6. Kids at 6 aren't saying terrific. Like, that's just such a weird, there's just like some weird dialogue for him that I just don't think fits. And then it looks like he's going to end up getting the doll because there's like a huge box. But when he opens it up, it's just like a bunch of wrapping and then some pants. And she's like, these will fit you. We'll just have to take them up, whatever. Oh, do you want toys and not clothes? Well, here. And she gives him a box. And it's like a good guy like toolkit, but it's not the doll. And he's like, I wanted the doll. And I'm like, you're a little shit. Like, accept what you were given. And then she's like, I know, but you didn't tell me in time. I didn't know you wanted it, so I couldn't save up for it this month. And he's like, okay. So you can kind of tell that like they're not terribly rich. They're not terribly poor. They're kind of just like surviving. But clearly she's like a single mother that has to work. And then you get more of a view into that when you find out that Karen works in the mall. She works at like a jewelry counter with her friend Maggie Peterson, who is played by Dina Manoff. She runs in and tells Karen about this hobo. They call him a peddler, but he's like a hobo. That's selling a good guy doll for super cheap out in the alley behind the mall. And just for reference, the good guy doll is like $100 in 80s money, which is like very expensive. And she pays like, I think 30 or like $50 for it, which again, still very expensive, but like it's a lot cheaper. And she clearly cares about her son enough that she's willing to pay that amount for something like this. She like tries to haggle him down, but it doesn't really work. And then I wrote her dick boss, Karen. So Karen like sort of like leaves the counter to go buy the doll and then come back. She's gone for like 5 minutes tops. She comes back and her dick boss is standing there and he's just so rude. And he's like, well, Karen, you have to work late. And she's like, it's my son's birthday. And he's like, whatever. And then Maggie's like, well, I can work for you. And he's like, Maggie, you work in shoes. You don't work in jewelry. Like, he's just like so demeaning. And then she's like, please, it's my son's birthday. And he responds with, are you happy with your job, Mrs. Barkley? Are you kidding me? Like, that is just so not acceptable. It's just not an acceptable response. Like, that's just so outrightly rude. I wrote tool in all caps. Oh, just so you guys know how I sort of take these notes so that you can understand, a lot of these are like my stream of consciousness because I have the movie playing and I'm taking notes, and sometimes I pause, but a lot of times I just kind of like to get down like basic plot, and then I sort of talk about my thoughts as the movie progresses. So I just watched it like an hour ago and took all my notes, and it took like 2 or 3 hours with all the pausing and the notes and whatever. But so when I say things like I just wrote like tool, it's in response to something, and because I just watched it, I can remember sort of what that is so that my process makes sense to all of you. But Maggie says that she'll watch him for the night, and, you know, Karen says, like, no, you can't do that again. You've done that so many times. And, like, clearly this is something that has happened a bunch. He calls her Aunt Maggie. Like, it's one of those, like, family friend scenarios, and you sort of understand the relationship between them is very close. I wrote, Chucky gets pulled straight out of that box and talks. And this comes back to play like later, but she brings home the box and she's like, this isn't groceries, open it up. And within 12 seconds, not only is the wrapping off the doll, like he runs into the living room. Also, he smacks the doll into the wall, which I thought was very funny that they didn't like cut and try it again. He's like running with the box sideways and it like slams into the wall. And then she sort of like puts her purse down and then runs into the living room. In that amount of time, Chucky's already out of the box and like unwrapped. Like, I just don't understand how fast that was physically possible. But he pulls Chucky straight out of the box and Chucky talks. And I wrote batteries ? And yes, for those of you that have seen the movie, you know that this comes into play later. And I've seen the movie before. I know that it comes into play later. But watching it again and sort of like trying to remove myself as someone who had seen it before and just try to like watch it for the first time, I was like, this clearly is haunted. Like, this doesn't make sense that he's talking right away. They're not going to put the batteries in right away. No toy does that. Like, that's just not, that's weird. And then Chucky like starts watching the news. I also wrote, did she like sanitize this doll or like clean it in any way? Because like when you see it in the alley, the box is like kind of open and she got it from like a really sketchy person. Like, did she clean the doll? Did she like sanitize it or make sure that it was like safe before she like gave it to her child? I don't know. Maybe that's just something that we think about nowadays because of Ms. Rona and all the COVID stuff that's happening. Like, you don't think about the fact that like blowing on a birthday cake is disgusting. But like, I never thought about it before. You know, it's just something you did. And now all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, that's nasty and gross and unsanitary. But like, you don't think about it. Maybe this is just one of those things that like nobody thought about at the time, but like now it would be something that we would have to think about. I don't know. Chucky ends up like watching the news, and he hears about his death, and you just see his head like turn towards the TV. And Maggie's like, it's time for bed. And Andy's like, Chucky wants to watch the 9 o'clock news. And she's like, yeah, of course he does. Whatever. Let's go to bed. And then I wrote, Maggie's green dress is sick. Maggie's makeup, her outfit. I wish the heel was a little bit higher on the like knee-high boot, but like her outfit in that scene is fire. The shoulder pads in that like forest green dress, she looks bomb. She looks great. And I hate all of Karen's clothing. She wears like this like weird like mother of the bride style color scheme. It's like all like pastel pink, but she wears like 8 of the same pastel pink color, but like in slightly different shades. And it just doesn't look good. It looks bad. She looks bad. I don't like it. I love her makeup. Hate the outfits. But anyway, Maggie looks sweet as hell. She puts, she's like, Andy, go brush your teeth. Like, she puts Chucky in the room, whatever. And then she's going and putting away dishes, and the TV like magically turns on, and Chucky is sitting in a chair. Obviously, as the audience, we know that Chucky did that, but it's a doll, and this is supposed to be like a real life thing. So like, obviously she's like, Andy, what the hell? Like, you can't be doing that. When I say something, I mean it. Go to bed. And then he kisses Chucky on the cheek. And I wrote again, did his mom like clean the doll or sanitize it? He just kissed it on the cheek, and she got it from like a peddler in an alleyway. And she just gave it to her child without like, there's no scene where you see her check the doll. That just seems really suspect to me. I don't know. The whole thing is a little shady. Anyway, Chucky sneaks out of the room. Maggie obviously thinks it's Andy. She's like, she closes the window. She's a little chilly. It's late at night. You get spooked when you're sort of like alone in the dark, She sort of hears like a clunk, and she walks over to the door, like very slow motion horror movie style. And you see that Chucky has like pushed a chair up against the door to try to like unlock the door and get out. And then she like turns the knob and opens it, and the door is completely unlocked, which is very unnerving, to be fair. So she slams it, she locks the door, and then she hears a smash from the kitchen. So she like walks into the kitchen, and there's like flour like spread out like all over the floor. I wrote #jump scare because the crash is like in silence, and it's like, oh, what just happened? Flour spilled all over the floor, and then I wrote, and ... Jump scare number 2. The phone rings. it's just Karen checking in, but obviously Maggie's like, oh no, like everything's fine. And Karen's like, are you sure? You sound so distressed. And she's like, no, I just have the late night willies. Like everything's fine. Like the minute she hangs up the phone, after you say everything's fine, like you know that she's gonna die. I mean, come on. That's like a horror movie 101. Phone rings. Oh, it's just you. Everything's fine. Don't worry about it. Hangs up phone. Dead. Dead in an instant. So that's pretty much what happens. So she hangs up the phone. Chucky grabs a hammer from the good guy toolkit. She like turns around. He hits her in the head. She like stumbles backwards, falls out of the window of their apartment and like crashes out the window and like lands on this car. She falls out in like slow motion. It's super dramatic. She dies. Now, for the next part, nowadays we'd be like, why did Karen get home and not know that there were police at her house? Like at her apartment. Like, why did she not know? This was the 80s. Cell phones were not a thing. If you had a cell phone, you were a suspect in like 80 different cases because having a cell phone was suspicious. Like, they didn't exist. So, like, if she didn't, there's no way for her to know if she was on her way home from work. And, like, you see her get off the bus. So she takes public transit. There's no way for her to know that something happened at her apartment unless they had called her at her job. And then the only way for her job to let her know if she's already on the bus is to call her when she gets home. It's like there's no way for her to know. So she gets off the bus and she sees that there's police around her building in her apartment. She runs into her apartment. She finds Andy. And the detective is talking to her. The detective from the first part, what is his name? Detective Norris? Yeah. Is sort of talking to Andy. He's like, can I please, talk to you outside, not in front of the kid? And she's like, whatever for? She's being very like over dramatic. And he's like, Maggie's dead. And she's like, what? How could that happen? It's like very horror movie drama. I don't know about you, but I personally hate having to go to the grocery store. It takes up so much of my day when I could be starting a new hobby with that time, like soap carving or collecting the sick bags out of airplanes. With Instacart, it makes grocery shopping fast and easy, all while allowing me to stay in my underwear. Instacart allows you to order all of the things you usually get from your local stores, delivered to your door in as fast as 1 hour. Not only that, but it will also give you smart suggestions for new items based off of your preferences, as well as highlight deals to help you save some money. The shoppers handpick perfect produce and make sure that your eggs get to you safely. You can get free delivery on your first order over $35 by following the link in the show notes. This also lets Instacart know that we sent you, and it helps support Whispers from Below. So if you hate grocery shopping as much as I do, try Instacart today and enjoy getting your groceries the easy way. Then he sort of talks about like, well, we found some tiny footprints on the counter. Your son's kind of our first suspect. She's like, no, my son would never do that. He's grieving just as much as I am. And then he sort of like basically accuses Andy after like looking at his little like pajama sneakers because they match the footprints in the flour. And, Karen gets pissed. So she like kicks everybody out. She's like, I'm grieving and I would just like some time alone with my son. Everybody get the hell out. And he's like, all right, fine. And then, she's asking him, she's like, come on, like, what happened? What really happened? And he's like, it was Chucky. And like, there's flour on the bottom of Chucky's shoes. So like, as the audience, we know that Chucky did it. But obviously, like, are you going to believe a 6-year-old saying that a doll did it? No, you're not. And he tells the officer that it was Chucky. And then I wrote, she washes her face, quote unquote. But like, she still has like a full beat on. Like, she like splashes water in her face and then like pats it dry. But when she like comes up, she still has like mascara and liner and eyeshadow and like blush. But it's like a very soft look. And then like it cuts to her in Andy's room and she has like different makeup on. Like, it's like heavier. So like, I don't know what happened between there and the bathroom, but somehow she got like a better beat on between the bathroom and Andy's room. Anyway, she hears Andy talking to Chucky, and he tells her that Chucky said that his real name is Charles Lee Ray, and that Daddy had sent him down from heaven to play with him, which is like kind of a cute statement, but also creepy when you realize that it's like an actual person saying that. And then I wrote, hearing Andy say the following words killed me. They sent me. He goes, Maggie was a bitch and got what she deserved. And just hearing like a 6-year-old say that so bluntly was like very jarring. Because that's like something Chucky says to Andy, and then Karen's like, "Don't say that. How could you do that?" And he's like, "No, Chucky said it." And she's like, "Can you stop making up shit about Chucky? He doesn't talk. He's a doll. Like, he's not saying these things. You're making it up, and I need you to get it together." And then he's like, "Fine, I'll stop talking about it." And then the minute she leaves the room, he turns over to Chucky and goes, "You're right, Chucky. She didn't believe me." Duh. Fucking duh, kid. Jeez. So then we go to Andy, like, she's dropping him off at school, and Karen's like, "Are you gonna be okay? Like, are you sure you don't need a day off?" And he's like, "No, Mom, I'm fine." But he's taking Chucky to school, and she's like, I mean, at that point, you're like, whatever you need to get through the day, fucking do it. So she's like, "Okay, I love you so much. I'll see you later." She watches him walk into the school, and then she turns around and leaves. Then Andy, and I wrote in all caps, skips school with Chucky. Jesus Christ. He rides the train alone with Chucky. He rides the, like, public transport train alone with a doll as like this 6-year-old kid. And then Chucky like is sort of like telling him where to go. You don't like see him saying it, but like he'll put his ear up to Chucky and then like turn right, you know? Like you sort of see him directing. And he is directing him to just like the sketchiest areas. And then Andy's like, "I gotta go take a tinkle, wait right here." And then he like steps to the side and he goes pee. And Chucky's like, "All right, deuces." And he like runs away into Eddie's house. I think it's Eddie, who is the person that sort of like fucked him over at the beginning of the movie, like his like accomplice that sort of like left him to die. Um, Chucky like sneaks into the house and he opens up the oven and turns on the gas, but doesn't like light the stove. And when he opens the oven, this wakes up Eddie, who sort of like creeps down the stairs and like fires the gun. And then he like hears Andy running to try to find Chucky. He hears Andy calling and he's like, "I'm not going to shoot a kid." He hears Chucky in the kitchen. He walks into the kitchen. He fires a gun in the kitchen and the house completely like explodes. Like there was like 8 bombs inside of it. Like the whole house just like literally explodes in the biggest fire in the world. And obviously I'm shortening that scene a lot. It does take like 5 or 10 minutes for this scene to occur because it has all the like slow motion jump scary, you know, slow walking sort of thing that you would expect from like a classic horror film. Like these are tropes that at the time weren't really, well, I mean, I think even by the time Child's Play came out, it was a little overdone. Or it was at least starting to get to that point, but they were like, let's go for it. And nowadays it's like, that's so overdone. Like we all know what's coming. But you know, that's what makes it a classic. So then Karen gets called into Detective Norris's like station. I like forgot the word for a second. The police station. About Andy, and they're questioning him, and he keeps saying that Chucky did it and Chucky did all this stuff. And then I wrote, Andy is just a terrible actor. And I understand, like, I get it. Up until this point, he hasn't been the absolute worst. And the reason is because he's just been doing little kid things like, "But it was Chucky, it wasn't me." Like, that's really easy to do and sort of get a feeling across because you're an adorable little kid and you are telling the truth and we as the audience know, so we feel for you, whatever. But then he tries to go like all bad cop on Chucky and he's like, "Say something, Chucky. Why are you doing this to me? Say something." And then he like starts like swinging Chucky around. He's like, "Why did you do this to me?" And he's like swinging him and like hitting him. But like he's such a bad actor that like you can tell that it's so put on and like forced. And I get it. Child actors are really hard to find. Like finding a good child actor is difficult. But like, for example, in The Others, I watched that after I got my nose surgery done with my boyfriend and my parents because I was home. And those child actors are amazing. They're fantastic. They're very skilled actors. They're making wonderful choices. They're telling the story while still remaining youthful. They don't seem too mature, but in the way that they're acting, you can tell that they're mature and can take direction. This poor child is just so bad. Like, he's just such a bad actor. And I don't normally comment on things like that, but it was just like so jarring in that one scene. And then he says that Chucky told him not to say anything or else Chucky would kill him. And then they're like, all right, this psychiatrist is like, I've seen enough. Andy should spend some time with us. So they take Andy to a mental facility. Karen then returns home with Chucky. And I wrote again, I just hate Karen's wardrobe. I think she's a very pretty woman, and she just looks so fucking ugly like this entire film because of what they put her in. She's just hateful. And then she's like, she puts Chucky down on the couch and she's like, whatever, I'm gonna go check the good guy doll box and sort of like throw it out. And then the batteries fall out of the box, like the two big, I think they're supposed to be like double D batteries, but they're like good guy brand. And they fall out of the box in packaging. And she's like, what? And I'm like, well, duh. He like took him straight out of the box and he talked. Like, you didn't think to look. You moved the box from the living room over to the trash can and it didn't fall out then. Like, I don't understand why you didn't notice that there were batteries in the box and he already talked. Like, this should have been something that you discovered earlier. I don't Anyway. So then she goes and she checks Chucky's back. Obviously, the batteries aren't in there. And then he's like, hi, I'm your friend till the end. And like she drops him and freaks out. And then he rolls him to the couch. And then he sort of like plays dead. And she's like, talk, damn it. Talk, damn it. Fine, I'll make you talk. And then you see her, which is like foreshadowing for later in the movie. She's sort of like, you see where the matches are on the fireplace. And she opens it up and she has a little cage and she lights the fire. She's like, I'll throw you in the fire if you don't talk. And then he's like, you stupid bitch, you fucking slut, and then like bites her. And like clearly you can see the difference between like the doll and then the animatronic that they made to be Chucky. And it's so funny because it's similar enough that like in the 80s that was like amazing. And I mean, it still is. Like the way that they sort of did the animatronic is like really great. They did a good job, but it's just hilarious the transition between like clearly a doll and then clearly like a maniacal animatronic. Like it's just such a clear difference, but it's like she's supposed to be holding, I don't know. It just made me laugh. That's the beauty of watching older movies like this, is stuff like that. And then he sort of like bites her on the arm and then like runs out of the apartment. And then she tries to chase him. I said she tries to chase him. Duh. He gets away. Duh. And then she goes to tell the detective, who like, duh, doesn't believe her that Chucky's real, because why? Like, it just doesn't make sense. And then like as the audience member, you're like, but we just saw it happen. But like logistically, if somebody came to you and said that their doll was eating them, like I'd believe them because I'm crazy. But the average person is going to be like, no, like that's just not, you're lying. That's just not the truth. And so you have to kind of take that into consideration. Like in the real world, if somebody said this to you, you wouldn't believe her either. So then she decides that she's like, whatever, I'm going to go find him myself. She like shows the detective the bite mark and he's like, how did you get that? And she's like, it was Chucky. He's like, stop doing this. Like, it's not real. So she decides to go to the alley behind the mall, which is, the detective says, is a very shady area at night for a woman that looks like her. And then there's like a weird, like almost rapey scene. In fact, it's like an almost rape scene. And then the detective like saves her. Basically, she goes back to the peddler and she's like, I need information. Where did you get the doll? And he's like, give me money. She pulls out her purse. He grabs the purse from her and is like, this isn't enough. And she's like, well, I don't have anything else. And he's like, oh yeah, you don't. And then he like goes to like hump her on the hood of a car. And then like the detective like slugs him in the face. Or I think maybe he knees him in the balls first. Something like that. Points his gun at all the hobos and then is like, tell me where the doll is, whatever. And they're like, oh shit, he's a cop, blah, blah. So then he explains that he got the doll from the burned down toy store. And that sort of sends the detective into a weird mental spiral. The detective admits to Karen, because she's like, why are you acting so weird when he said the toy store? Because that's where Charles Lee Ray died. Well, how do you know that? Because I was there. I'm the one that killed him. And she's like, why didn't you tell me? Like, what? What do you mean, why didn't you tell me? That is not at all information that you deserve to know. And he's like, well, it's not something you tell people. But like, that's not the proper answer. It's like, it doesn't have anything to do with anything with your son. So why would I mention it? Like, it doesn't make sense. Whatever. It's weird. And then she knows, she's like, well, now I know that Chucky is Charles, but like, I don't know how he got in the doll. And then he's like, you need to get out of my car. And she's like, no, you're next. Like, you need to be careful. And he's like, get out of my car. So he like walks out of the car and like drags her out of the car. She keeps trying to tell him that he's going to die. He doesn't believe her. He returns to the police station and he grabs his file that's on Charles Lee Ray. And then he hops back in his car. And like, obviously we know that something bad is going to happen, right? He's in his car and they're showing it for too long. So Chucky's in the car, which I figure makes sense. And he tries to strangle him with like, I can't really tell what it is. It's like a yellow cord. Maybe it's like a bungee cord or something, but he tries to strangle him. And that doesn't really work. So he ends up like somehow having a knife. Like, again, these are things that I feel like, yes, we know that maybe like an hour or two has probably passed since Chucky escaped the apartment. So like there is potential that he could have broken into somebody else's apartment and then gotten a knife and like a garrote or like a bungee cord or whatever to get in the car to then, attack him. But like, we don't see that. So all of a sudden he just like has a knife, like, and it's not just like a little knife. Like it's like a full ass kitchen knife, like a huge like kitchen knife. Like, how did he obtain that without anybody missing it? I don't understand. Then, to get him off of him for strangling, the detective like grabs his little like cigarette starter thing that's in the cars and he like puts it on his face. And then Chucky's like stabbing through the seat and then he like climbs under it and like pushes the gas pedal, which obviously makes the car like crash. And this scene is so ridiculous. Like the guy is like still driving, but he's like fully floating in like midair to avoid the knife like going up his asshole. And then like the car flips over and the detective is like surprisingly okay after the crash. Like he's like fully fine, which I just thought was another weird thing. Like he should at least have like a broken arm or something. His entire car like flipped over, but he's like totally fine. I just thought that was weird. And then he tries to shoot Chucky, but Chucky's like, haha, bullets can't hurt me, blah, 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 blah. He shoots Chucky like in the shoulder. It looks like his chest, but later you see it's like his like right shoulder. And he sort of is like, fuck, and like runs away. And then it cuts to Charles' apartment that Karen is now sort of exploring. And there's like all this painted mural stuff on the wall, and there's this big painted like voodoo priest sort of thing. The detective finds her there. It's a jump scare, of course, and he states that the man in the painting is a friend of Chucky's and he was attacked by Chucky in the car. Then you cut to Chucky finding John, who is the voodoo man, and being like, hey, John, why the fuck was I bleeding? I thought I was going to be immortal because I'm a doll. It shouldn't hurt me. And then John is like, well, you're turning human because you've been in the doll's body for too long. And he's like, well, help me. And then John is like, no, you're an abomination and you've ruined everything I've taught you and you must be stopped. And then he like runs away, which like, why would you announce that? Why wouldn't you just be like, sure, let me just call someone and then like call the police? Like, I don't know why you had to like announce it. Like that was his fault. That was his fault to die, And then Chucky's like, well, whatever. And he pulls out a voodoo doll and he like tortures Johnny, like snaps the voodoo doll's leg, which like snaps John's leg. And then he's like, tell me what to do or you die. And then John explains that in order to survive, he has to transfer his soul into the first person that he revealed himself to, which would be our lovely, annoying Andy, who is still in the mental facility while all this is happening. Because this is all in like 2 days. This all happens in like 2 to 3 days. It's very aggressive. And he's like, really, I'm going to be 6 years old again. Ha ha ha, this is fucking awesome. And then he like stabs the doll and John is like bleeding out. So they find John dying and he explains to them that they have to shoot him. They have to kill him in his heart because his heart is the most human thing about him. That's the only way to stop him, is to hit him in his heart. Keep this in mind. He explains the only way to kill him is to kill his heart. That is the only way to do it. He explicitly says this. And as you can guess, they actively ignore it. So then Andy's in his mental facility and he like peeks out the window and he sees Chucky kind of like climbing up the stairs and like breaking into the facility and he's trying to get the attention of people. Nobody's believing him. He ends up stealing the keys. And he being Chucky and sneaks into Andy's room where he sort of like there's like a lump of something under the covers on the bed. So Chucky's like, I got him. And he has his knife and he pulls the covers down and it's a pillow. And then Andy like runs out of the room with the keys and like like closes the door and then enters another place. But now obviously they know that he's escaped. So like the doctors are looking for him as well as Chucky. He enters this like surgery room. And Chucky like finds him there and like blinds him, gets him a little like disoriented, and then like knocks him over and like all that good happy stuff. And then I said, Auntie grabs a fucking scalpel. Like, oh my God, how does he know how a scalpel works? Like, how did he know not to grab? Because my thought would be, well, the blade end is going to be, the long end, not the small end. So I would go to grab the small end. But this little 6-year-old like picks up a scalpel and is like holding it the right way and like ready to go. It's like, damn, what a smart little kid. I said, geez, how did you know what that was, kid? And then the doctor gets in there and he's like, no, you don't need this anymore. He wrestles the scalpel out of his hand. Obviously, Chucky picks it up. The doctor is saying, like, you don't need to worry about it. I'm going to inject you with this thing. It's going to pinch for a bit, but you're going to be totally fine. Everything's going to be great. Don't worry about it. And then Chucky, like, it hits his, like, calf or, like, his Achilles with the scalpel, like, full Pet Cemetery, like, slices it open. The doctor drops down. Chucky puts on the, like, what is it? The, like, electroshock therapy sort of thing over his head and, like, powers it all the way up and, like, burns the guy's head. And then Andy, like, runs away. The detective and Karen are, like, 1 second behind literally all the time. So they get there, and I wrote, this is a really, like, sketchy, scary-looking mental facility. Like, it looks like a weird, like, run-down Annie sort of scenario. All the kids are, like, dirty and grimy and, like, sitting on the floor, like, crying. And then Karen is talking to one of the kids, and the detective is talking to his, like, partner, and the partner is like, yeah, so Andy, like, murdered the doctor, and he's like, it's not Andy, but, like, we'll figure it out. And then he's like, where would Andy go? And Karen's like, the kid told me that Chucky's after him. And, like, I told him if he's in trouble, he can get home. Does he have a key? It's under the mat. And then they, like, run out. So then it cuts to Andy. He's home. It somehow knows how to get home. Also, like, what? I guess that's, like, more of a thing. Like, you would learn your routes and, like, your streets a little bit more when you didn't have, like, a GPS. I feel like that's something that maybe you would have a little bit more knowledge about at a younger age, especially in that sort of era. But I can't imagine a 6-year-old knowing how to get from a mental facility that he's never been to back to his apartment in a major city. Like, I can't wrap my brain around how he got back. Like, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Anyway, he ends up getting home. He barricades the door. And then there's a scene that I thought was really funny where, like, Chucky's in the elevator in the apartment building. And there's, like, an old couple in there, and the woman's like, look, hun, like, somebody left their doll in the elevator. And then he's like, leave it. They'll come back and get it later. And then she, like, walks out of the elevator and is like, what an ugly doll. And then as the elevator's, like, going up, you just hear, fuck you. And I just, like, don't know why that's in the movie. Like, we could have cut that scene and then just, like, had more of a scene where, like, he's getting the knife. Like, fleshing out other things that don't make sense. But they just decided to add this, like, weird, campy, like, fuck you. And it sounds just like that. Like, I had to, like, pause. I was laughing so hard. And then Andy, like, hides in his closet, and he grabs a good guy baseball bat. Chucky comes in through the fireplace. Like, I guess the chimney somehow he gets access to, and, like, comes in through there. And Andy is such a fucking dumbass little kid. Obviously, he's like a 6-year-old. But like, he runs out of his room, finds Chucky, swings the bat, misses, so he drops the baseball bat and starts running. Dumbass. He runs into the kitchen. I wrote, Andy misses. Dumbass. He drops the bat. Dumbass. He runs into the kitchen. Dumbass. Because the kitchen in their apartment has, like, multiple entry points. Like, he didn't go into a place where Chucky can only enter from one space so he can see him. It's like multiple places. And then Chucky hits him in the back of the head and he gets knocked out. Then he, like, rolls him over. He begins this incantation. Obviously, Karen and the detective arrive, perfect timing. They get to the apartment. and they bust through the door because big, strong detective man. They rip Chucky off of him, and they're like, oh my God, and they throw him aside, and he runs away. The detective is like, Karen, take this. And he gives her a gun, and then he's like, I'm going to go find him. So he like runs into one of the bedrooms, and he's like trying to find him. And then Chucky like does the same sort of thing that he did to the doctor, like slices like his calf or like his Achilles open. Um, and then he sort of like runs away and like escapes and like goes to grab, Andy again. Before he ends up finding Andy, he knocks out the detective because the detective is kind of the worst. And then Karen like shoots him in the leg. And then he's like, oh my God. And then she ends up like grabbing Chucky because he like leaps at her, and she like throws him in the fireplace and like locks him in there. And she drops the matches, and she's like, Andy, you need to like light a match and like give it to me like right now. You need to throw it in there. You need to throw a match in there right now. And then he's like, and then Chucky like stops, and he's like, no, Andy, we're best friends till the end, remember? And then he goes, best line in the whole film. He goes, this is the end, friend. And then he throws the match in, and I wrote applause. Chef's kiss. Just like such a quality portion of the film. It's so stupid. Anyway, Chucky runs around, he's on fire. He's magically somehow not burning down the carpet or any of the furniture that he's rubbing his fiery body on. It's just him that's on fire. The detective wakes up, and they leave Chucky on the floor. They all leave the room. They're so stupid. He said the only way to die is by the heart. And then they just left a corpse in that, like, oh my God. So then they're like, go get first aid for him. And Andy runs into the kitchen. Obviously, Chucky ain't dead yet. He like trips him. And then they have this whole chase scene where he like runs into the room, and they close the door. And then Chucky's like trying to open the door. And then he's like, oh, I can get in through the bathroom. So he like runs over to the bathroom. And then she's like, oh, and she closes the door. And then somehow he's like stabbing through a wooden door with like a kitchen knife. Like he's a strong ass doll. He's stabbing directly through the door with his kitchen knife. There's a bunch of apartment chasing that happens. And then she ends up shooting literally every part of his body but his fucking heart. Like, I just don't understand. It's the one thing he said, and she doesn't do it. Also, the gun, like, magically never has to reload. Like, I don't get that either. Like, it's out of bullets, but I don't recall them ever reloading the gun. So I don't know when magically, whatever. Maybe he has a second gun that I like missed, which is very possible, but I thought that was weird. She shoots off like his head, one of his legs, one of his arms, but like doesn't shoot him in the heart. And then another cop shows up, and they try to tell him, like the detective is like partner, and he obviously doesn't believe them, and he's like, don't touch anything. And then obviously the cop is an asshole, so he, goes and grabs the doll's head, and he's like, this doll isn't real, it's not alive, what are you doing? And then through the vents, the like body of Chucky like starts like strangling him with like one arm, and then they like beat him off of him, and they throw him in the corner, and then he's like, do you believe me now? And he's like, oh my God. And then Chucky's head is like, kill him, kill them all, kill them all, kill them all. And then I wrote, oh, now she remembers the heart. Because she looks at the cop and she's like, you have to shoot him in the heart. And I'm like, what? You could have solved this like literally 10 minutes ago if you would have just remembered that huge thing. It's not even like that small, minute detail. It's like that thing that he said is the only way to kill the thing that's killing your son. Yeah. That thing that he said that is the only way to kill your son. Not kill your son. LOL. To kill the thing that's trying to kill your son. It's the one thing he said. And you just decided to like forget that information until now for dramatic effect. Like, I don't understand. So he shoots shoots Chucky in the heart. And he like explodes with blood and like bleeds like up against this wall. And like it's the first time that you see Chucky bleed. So it's like kind of dramatic. And then you sort of see them like, they call the police. The police are getting there, and he's like, do you believe us now? And he's like, yeah, but who's going to believe me? And then the movie is kind of like, well, how are we going to swing an ending? So they just kind of don't. And then the last sort of shot is the door closing and you see Andy looking back at the doll. And that's sort of like the end shot before credits. So they knew that this was ridiculous and that it wouldn't work out in like real life. Like, how would they explain that to the cops? So like they just kind of cut that part out. They were like, "Oh, well, we made a scary movie. We'll just be done now." And that's the end. So I know that this is a little bit of a longer episode, but oh my God, please watch this film. It's on Netflix. The original one is on Netflix, so go check it out. It's if you haven't seen it before, it is like prime 80s ridiculous horror film. I have no better way to explain it. That is really like it's such a prime definition of like crappy 80s classic horror film. It's ridiculous, it's stupid, but it has like some good jump scares in it, and the idea of a doll coming to life is like kind of spooky. It's just like it's silly and it's fun, and it's free on, well, I mean, it's free if you have Netflix, in the sense of like you can go find it. You don't have to like purchase it. You know what I mean? But go check it out. It's hilarious. It's amazing. I think everybody should watch it. And that's really it for this episode. Um, Before, I let you guys go, really quickly, please follow me on Instagram at Whispers from Below. No spaces, no underscores, no capitals, no nothing. You can DM me with comments, questions, concerns. I know I've been a little scattered with my uploads recently. I've had a lot of random stuff happening. Like I was on vacation and now I have to get surgery again during this pandemic on my left ankle. And so I'm trying to decide how I'm going to end up uploading an episode for next week. So I'm just trying to, figure everything out and whatever. Once I have the surgery done, I'll be able to upload because it's on my ankle. It's not like when I got my nose done and I had a hard time. But just there's a lot going on. So to keep updated with when I'm uploading and when I'm not, please follow the Instagram. I really do try to post there and let you guys know about stuff like that. So that's the best way to sort of get information on that. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, you can always DM me on Instagram. I'm always near my phone. I'm a Gen Z. My phone is pretty much next to me at all times of the day. So feel free to message me there, or you can send me an email. The email is at whispersfrombelow@gmail.com. There's no spaces, no underscores, no capitals, no nothing. I'm going to try to get a real website, Buzzsprout, which is who I upload the podcast through. They're really amazing, and they have a website. They like create the website for you, which is very lovely. But I think I want to make my own website soon, so I'm going to try to get that up and going, especially because I have all those pictures done. They're really, really great. They're really, really fun. I had a really great time doing those. Again, you're going to see some of those pictures going up soon, hopefully. There's a t-shirt, a hoodie, a hat, a notebook, a pop socket. I have a septum piercing now, and I did like my full face, and I look spooky and goth, and like it's really fun. I had a really fun time with the photo shoot, and I hope that you guys really like the pictures and sort of how the merch is going to look. If you guys are interested in purchasing some of that, please let me know. I know I don't have a huge viewer base right now, but if I can start to get stuff like small little batch orders together for any of you guys that really want it, shoot me a message, send me an email, do stuff like that, and I can see what I can do. If I can just ask one thing from you guys, even if you don't follow, anything like that, is just share the podcast. If each of you shares with one person and they decide to tune in next week, that literally doubles the amount of listeners that I have. Even if you just share by word of mouth, if you're uncomfortable sharing on social media, I totally get it. If you'd love to share it on social media, that would make my whole day. I love when people are like, I love this podcast, somebody listen to it, and they share it. Like it makes me really, really happy that something I'm so passionate about and something I love doing is something that you guys are enjoying as well. And it's not just a thing for me. It's kind of fun to know that. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got. So remember, Chucky is ridiculous. This series is way too long for this. And the pandemic is not over. Wash your hands. Stay safe.